just our little basic talking points. The main talking points on the front, on the back,
We are.
there's 5 lines. And what I want you all to do tonight is to write 5 names down on the back that you're gonna call and say vote for Bill. And as we go around, we're gonna ask people to do that. Write names down while we're here. Write the name, not take it home, not, okay, yeah, I'll take it home. Right now, take it home, write some names down. I can call old Bill. And then ask Bill if he can call somebody too. Call 5 people, give them the points, and we're gonna try to make a tree out of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
First steps. Then we're gonna we'll be starting to do some things with, and I'm gonna be sending you guys some things to put on your social media pages. I think all y'all have most of y'all have a Facebook account, so I'll be sending stuff for y'all to put on there, just bullet points that we can put out. And we have people here.
How do we make a contribution to the cause for the signs and stuff?
If we want, and here we are on Mooney, I put some money in the bank account just so we have one. The only thing really that we could spend money on is to print some signs. If y'all think we should, then let's put together, we need probably $800 to $1,000. And just, if you wanna make a check out to the sales tax campaign, get it to me, and then we'll get it done. Take us about a week or so to get it done. We need to put them out 2 or 3 weeks out. You know, once we get this next little election gone, a lot of the signs are gonna, that are cluttering the highways are gonna be gone here. So, then we put some guys out. If y'all wanna do that, and I think it's a good idea, there's really not any place we can buy ads. We're gonna do some op-eds for the paper, that sort of thing. So, yeah, just, we check, we get out the sales tax campaign, and get it to me. And get it done.
Sounds good.
Thoughts, questions, suggestions?
This is great, great, appreciate it.
On
Big
that-
facts. This came from, everybody kind of contributed to this, all your staff and everybody contributed to this. We've got a whole bunch more facts that we're putting out. I met a little bit today. So we're gonna just kind of start a continuous good news kind of campaign. How important it is,
Sounds good. Thanks, Bob.
and I won't stay very long when I start sneezing on the leaf.
All right. I'll be right behind you, probably. Thank you.
Why are you going to sneeze?
You want- Oh,
Why is he going to sneeze?
I think he's got a cold.
Oh, okay. Or I was
Not medical
thinking that
doctor.
maybe he's allergic to pizza.
Oh, he's allergic to you.
Okay, fine.
All right, I think we've got, Rod's en route, I think, and Tim's gonna be late, right? Maybe? So, it's 5:16, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll call this meeting to order officially, I guess. It's a study session of City Council, Wednesday, January 21st, 2026 at 5:16 PM. We have one item, that will turn into a lot of items, but we've got one item on the agenda that's the 2026 proposed operating budget. So, Tom, if you'd like to proceed in whatever order you'd like, get us kicked off here. Help yourself to food as we talk. It is a non-voting meeting, casual, kind of, sort of, but we'll try to keep as good an order as we can.
Is ready?
Yep.
Okay, the first thing I want to do is you guys were tasking me to, at my suggestion, not that you demanded this, that I go back and take a deeper dive into the budgets, look at it for the 5-year historical spendings and the 5-year historical revenue streams, and look at the items from a let's reduce the ones that needed to be reduced and let's increase the ones that needed to be increased based on what the department initially put down versus what historical averages tend to trend. However, those can actually, if there's a justifiable reason to bring them down, such as utilities, that maybe there's a conservation effort that's going on that I didn't know, but what I did is I took that deep dive into it to see if we could make an impact on that little over 11% disparity between what we're considering to be a reasonable and a contingency fund amount that we don't want to drop below as far as the general unrestricted fund is concerned, and where we were headed as far as the budget was concerned. And the first thing I want to say is that I do see that there are department heads here from the water and sewer departments. Water sewer is not an issue for me. I don't know if it's an issue for you. It is not going to be part of the subject that I'm going to be talking about this evening, because their budget has been reviewed by their commission. You have also reviewed their budget. It is a sound budget. They do have a revenue stream that's ample to cover their expenditures now. There is a potential that down the road, and they know it as well as the commission, that there will be possibly some period of time that they'll be looking at for their betterments and improvements, some sort of a debt structure that is maybe a year to 2 years down the road. They're trying to operate within their means now. They have monies that are, right now they've amassed about $1 million that we're going to be disclosing to them from the year end of 2025 as far as their profitability is concerned. So unless you have any concerns or questions that you want to ask them, and unless they want to stay, I don't have anything that I'm going to be presenting related to water sewer. This is going to be more about the general unrestricted fund departments that are operations and street. So it's up to you as to whether you might have questions that would be related to the budget, but it's not part of my presentation today. So I didn't know if they were able to, on that note, leave or stay if they want. It's up to you.
Council?
Sounds good, Tom.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Y'all don't feel like you need us because we're going to big days tomorrow, but
Best be bringing that chili.
what's happening,
Go home and
We got a
sleep.
chili
Go home
cook-off
and
tomorrow.
sleep.
All right, I just saw them there. Anybody else want me to argue to get you out too?
No,
Wait a minute, Tanya, have you met everybody?
please.
I don't, that's,
more dig.
must be an
One more
inside
time.
joke, I don't know. Okay, with that said,
Create threads too.
I wanted to kind of bring you back up to speed on the city of Greenwood and where we are as far as revenue streams are concerned from a taxable sales perspective for city sales and use tax. I know we had a lot of statistics at the end of the city council for December of 2025. But when you can look at it from the perspective of, we had rebates that impacted our percentage decrease that we had in city sales and use tax. Yes, we did. We also had audit adjustments that were done primarily due to what we know is the road purchases and sales for the road, and as far as that rebate is concerned, and various other large purchases from vendors that come under that category. However, when you adjust back for the rebate as though the rebate never happened, and you put those dollars back into taxable sales, you make it painfully obvious that in 2025, we had a $5 million shortfall compared to 2024 in taxable sales within the city of Greenwood, from sales of services, sales of fast foods, and sales of product compared to what we had in 2024. It could also be a decrease in the actual online sales. I don't know. The bottom line is taxable sales that contributed to a potential distribution to the city of Greenwood dropped $5 million in the sales. That's 2.28% decline. That has nothing to do with the audit adjustments or the rebates. We dropped more than that when you add the rebate in. So that's a trend that we want to try to stem the tide on and see what we can do to keep shoppers inside the city of Greenwood in order to generate and maintain that level of sales volume. So bottom line is, if we didn't have any audit adjustments next year, yes, we would see an increase, but it would only be to the point of how much decrease in the taxable sales occurred. You would only get to a certain point. You wouldn't actually jump over that unless the sales volume increased. So I wanted you to see that, and that's a battle that we're fighting right now in the city sales and use tax, and justifies the need for why the tax is very important to us, because you're looking at several $1 million that are being utilized, and Bob pointed out, throughout the city departments that have that tax as far as given to them. Moving on, I wanted to share with you what the original budgets in 2026 that you reviewed, all of these departments that fall under the general. Then this is the revenue stream for 2026's budget. It's $4.7 million. That's the one that you've reviewed. Back in 2018, we had $3,335,000. That we've increased our revenue between 2018 and 2026's budget, and we'll come within a few percentage points of that. We've increased it this goes actually through 25. From 25 to 2018, we've increased it 25.94%. That's actual. Our budget this year is 4.7. That's how that works. I took out all the additional columns. When you look at the 2026 expenditures, we're budgeting $5.2 million for these operating departments. This has nothing to do with the restricted monies that go to them. This is only money that's mostly supported by county sales tax, which defrays their cost of operations. So when you look at that, we've increased our expenditures from 2018 to 2025 by 36.86%, far over what our revenue streams are. So that means invariably you're having to dip into your unrestricted general fund in order to support that. And that's what's been happening. We did start the 2018 when I first came here. Our daily deficit spend was $5.61 per day over what our revenue stream was. Now that's just a silly average, but bottom line is we ended up with a deficit in 2018 of $2,048. Our deficit budgeted originally that you looked at and had me go back to the drawing board on was just under $500,000. That brought us down to well below $500,000 in our reserve. It was more like right at 400,000. So when I went back and looked at it, first I want to look at each department and what their deficits have been and or surpluses. And the surplus deficit line is where the dollar sign is. Anything above that line is a surplus for that year. Anything below the line is a deficit for the year. And you see animal services, we know what happened right here. There's a reason for that. We had some issues with some animals that were housed a rather long time, and the animal service costs were very high. And that's been rebounded, came back up, and that's not a good number. We should have made that 6.67. But 2026, the original budget submitted was $16.65 per day, or a deficit spend on the animal services. This is what was originally submitted. Then in general department, the general department had a budgeted surplus. You see where we were, but you see the trend line here for how we've been trending over the past few years, even though they're mostly by and large above the zero or surplus line, as I like to call it. 147.12 was what we ended the year on a daily loss or a daily deficit in the general fund itself, not the general unrestricted fund. That's the general department, general and administrative. This 2026 budget, they came in at $855.70 per day as far as the surplus is concerned. And I'll show you those numbers as far as what they mean dollar-wise. You take that number, multiply it by 365. The daily surplus or deficit spend for parks, the trend line is negative. There was a huge deficit drop between 23 and 24, mostly due to operating expenses related to certain big projects that they had going on. That shifted some of the cost over to the operating to cover it, and when it should have been out of their city sales and use tax. We have since, as you know, moved what could be paid under the city sales and use tax to the city sales and use tax to relieve the general fund's unrestricted balance. So you're at you saw an original budget at $9.68 surplus in the budget for 2026. That was original. They were a surplus department. When you look at the planning department, they also were a surplus department budget for 2026 at $6.30 per day surplus. Mostly they were up, and obviously there was some major activity going on permitting-wise in 2022 and 23. You do realize that when you see these numbers, 2021 and 22 waned off, and 23 was the COVID years. Just wanted you to know that. But there was also Area 51 and some major construction work that had been done within the city at that time. And then when you look at it seems like just yesterday, doesn't it? But it has been a while. And then the daily surplus for the fire department, they are historically, just the first year in 2018, they were down. But historically, they have been a surplus department. Their trend, however, even though they have a positive trend over the years 18 through 26, and these are actual numbers, this is the only one that's a budget number, has been negative over the last few years. And we actually did this to them this year by forcing the same mentality of things that are stipulated strictly to be covered by the city sales and use tax that were in the general fund. We moved them over just like we did for every department that has city sales and use tax. So that lowered their actual surplus amount in the general fund side because it's shifted, it was shifting. That's what was going on here. They were shifting it back and we moved it off. So bottom line is they're not generating as much this year, but what their operations is supporting is truly their operations. It's still a surplus. It's still a very healthy budget. It's still on a positive trend line. As far as the police department, that historically has been a declining negative deficit budget all throughout the years 2018 to 2026, with the initial year being about $1,249 per day, down now to $2,418 per day. That's their operations. Now, there's a lot of things we could discuss about that, and we'll save that for later as far as a discussion on the police department, but that was their original budget that they submitted. That means that they're asking for the general fund unrestricted to support that amount of money as far as the deficit is concerned. Historically, it was supported with franchise taxes, which equates to on average, about $550,000 a year in franchise fees, franchise taxes to the city. And those monies we were not using to collateralize against any bonds. We had that option, and it's been pitched to us several times, but we knew that that money was kind of blocked off to accommodate the deficits that were being incurred by the police department. This year alone, I'll get to those numbers as far as the general and administrative account is, but this year alone, they have only a surplus of $338,000, I think it is a surplus number, the general does, in their current budget. That is about $250,000 short of what the franchise taxes would be able to support, so they're not able to offset as much the police department's deficit. This is the general unrestricted fund that was submitted as a budget that caused the alarm that even though this is tracking now budget-wise in the right direction, it is a hugely negative trend line. You know what happened in 2021 and 22. I told you that was the COVID years, and that what was going on in the general unrestricted funds was there was a lot more increase in the sales and use tax because there was a lot of handouts that were given by the government. There was a lot of federal money that flowed in. There was a lot of people that were buying, obviously, online. You do realize the online impact started at the end of 2019 with the passage of the law that claimed those taxes on retail sales outside the state and generated some income largely to the city. And we saw that and we spent it a lot. And so there's deficit spending occurring in 23, 24, 25, and we're rebounding. We're going in the right direction, but that number is not sustainable. So when we go to what I reviewed, and I'll get to that, this is the revised budget after I took a look at it. Now, the numbers between 2018 and these statistics are the same because they're actual, But this budget now shows, I even tweaked some of the revenue numbers up and down based on history and historical. 4.75 million in the revenue side is the budget. It's an average of 1316, but the expenditures dropped to 5,038,000, which is now at an average of 13,803 per day deficit. So we are in a deficit spend now, instead of $1,300 a day, $787 a day. So I pretty much dropped that deficit that we had of just under $500,000 to just over $250,000 from where we were. To demonstrate what that is, these are the department breakouts. What you see in this column is the original budget, and each of the department's surpluses or deficits, and police and animal services were the deficits. So when you net that, it's $1,363.81 per day, or $497,789 in the budget that would be removed from the unrestricted general fund. The revised budget shows an increase of $64.55 per day for the general and admin, $15.19 for the Parks Department. They're now at a surplus of $24.87 per day. These are daily amounts. $38.56. This 2039 deficit is an actual increase of about $400 a day. 22 cent positive for the animal services, virtually break even. 267.24 per day, or a 67.78 change, bringing you to 787, or the actual deficit now drops from 497 to 287. We save $210,373 just by taking a harder look at and a more realistic look at some things within their budget. Now, not all of that is due to expenses being cut. A lot of that increase that you see there came from a decision that I've made and looked at as far as revenues were concerned as well. One of the things that we immediately changed based on your direction was the $51,000 that came out of the county sales tax that was being pre-distributed to the Boys and Girls Club, went solely over to the general and admin department. And the rest of the departments, which is one of the reasons why these numbers picked up significantly, was that number was redistributed to all those departments based on your allocation percentages you've assigned. So their county sales tax, which is used for their O&M, actually went up. It didn't lay flat because of that now released distribution to them. I hope that makes sense, but so that's one of the things. The other thing I looked at was some of the finance department's controlled expenditures, and took a little more aggressive look at some of the items, one being insurance. In the insurance line, where we historically have been budgeting about a 15% increase in your premiums for insurance, I went ahead and made a decision to drop that initially to 10%. And see what the impact that was for. And the reason I did that is because last year we only had about a 3% overall increase. It wasn't anywhere near the 15%. And I'm not necessarily saying that it won't jump up to 15% in the industry. I'm hoping it's settled down a little bit. But I went ahead and dropped it to 10, and I think I went just recently again to get it down a little bit more. I dropped it to 7.5% increase. Still, it's more than what we had last year realized, but it is also an increase that I think might be more in the ballpark. I'm looking for between a 5 and a 7.5%. If that doesn't happen, at least we won't know, we won't have to deal with that at least until July, and August is our premium date. So when we know the numbers that come in and through the July month, we'll also have a half a year trend on where our sales and use tax revenue stream's going, and we'll know whether we need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe we can, when it gets down to it, if it is a 10% increase, we can look at maybe adjusting some of the coverages, some of the deductibles. We can look at some creative things within the actual re-upping of the policies, or even bid it out at same. But there's things we can do once we know some of the facts of where our revenue streams are and what our reaction to that's going to be. So that's one of the reasons why I tweaked that line. The other one I took a look at was the 7.5% distribution for the amount that we book in the budget for the retirement program. Our retirement program to non-uniformed employees was 7.5%, but how the formulary was calculating it, when I took a deep dive into it, it was taking the current budgeted amount of money, the current budgeted salaries, and taking 7.5% of that. And that was on everybody, no matter when they were hired. However, you have to be here a year before you get that distribution. So the people that were hired this year, Tanya being one, there's not a distribution for her this year because she came in April, I think it was. So she hadn't been here a year. Her year is up in April. So she'll be on the next year's distribution amount. So I tweaked those off. That caused a little bit of a reduction in certain departments' way of calculation. And then I went and changed the formula to go back and use the end of year's salary. What did they earn? And that's the amount that is sent to Allery in our, where they manage our account for us. And just today, I received back the actual numbers that I can now plug back into the budget. And it should be a little bit less. So I'm anticipating a little bit of a pickup there because this afternoon, she finally gave us to review the actual check that we're gonna cut by department, what that distribution would be, and we're gonna book that, because there won't be another one until 27, which will be in January of 27. So the real numbers will be budgeted, not a guess. And so that's good. There's one other thing that came to my attention today, and has to do with ChatGPT and the AI policy that was adopted. There's 11 users that have indicated an interest in a software that's, what's that called, Charla? Copilot. Where are you? Oh, there you are. I can't see you. There you are. Okay, it was Copilot, and it has ChatGPT in it, and there was 11 people that expressed the interest in having that added on, and the total cost will be broke down by department, but it's $2,922. That is not in the budget, but it will be added to this budget. It's minimal as far as that's concerned. However, I do want to sum all this up and show you where we are after I took the deep dive, and we can talk about some of the things that we want to do. Let's look at this is what would happen to the unrestricted fund as a result of how I looked at the budgets. And you'll see that it went up to $787 as far as where it was at $1,385. So it's better, that's a good news that it is going in the right direction. But I think what has to happen is that's got to be followed up by some sort of ordinance for contingency funds, and some sort of policies that support that ordinance that have trigger points in them. And I would say that if we have a vision going forward of how to build that contingency fund up and back in future years, we can probably work around what we currently have now in the budget after I did this review. And I'll talk about some other things in a second about a plan. But here's the contingency fund calculation. This is where we left it from your budget. We had an 11.19% miscue from the $1,048,000 that's calculated from a 20% of the general funds department's operating expenditures. That's how the contingencies historically are calculated. So that means we had to come up with a reduction of about a little over $500,000, 586 to be exact, thousand. 586, not million, $586,000. All right, from the $1,048,000. So that broke it down by these departments. If you spread it amongst all departments to share the pain, that's how it would have ferreted out. That means general would have had to have cut $137,000. Police department would have had to have cut $265,000. 65,000 from parks, 75 from fire, and 31,000 from planning. So you could pick on some of the low-hanging fruit, but that doesn't come even close to bringing us back to $1,048,000. This is a standard number for 20% for cities of the first class. That's normally the amount, but that number can be adjusted. That number can go up or down as far as your comfort level is concerned and what you are willing to accept as risk, as far as catastrophes and things that would happen that would need a demand on the unrestricted general fund without going into some sort of debt, which is also available to you. Most of this has to do with what you foresee in the near future, both from the economic front, as far as growth to the city is concerned, as far as where the revenue streams are going to grow, because they have to, because your expenses are outpacing your revenue streams daily. If you were to look at where I looked at the budgets and what I was able to do to the budgets, I brought it down to about a 6.9% instead of 11.17%. And that means 81, if you split it along the lines of equal distribution, 6.9% off of everybody's amount that they need for the contingency. You're looking at 347,000 and not almost 600,000, about half. So if I were to adjust this number, this 20%, and you say, well, what would 15% look like as far as a contingency? It would put you just under $750,000 as far as your contingency. You'd be right under the $750,000 number. Now, your current budget right now for your projected unrestricted general fund is $660,000. So I actually don't have that number. Let me look. That's street. I want to move over this to show you what it would do, because I can actually do this on the fly. All right. So here's the amount that's in there right now. That's even with the 6.9%. If I were to change this to 15%, you're looking at a $95,000 shortage from the amount that would be required. You would be required to have $755,000 off of the current operating expense budget. And we still only have 660. That's 210,000 greater than we had before I looked at the budgets. And you would be looking at sharing and share alike 1.9%. And that broke out by these numbers. That means police department, from what I've already done to them, and they haven't seen it yet, they would have to come up with another $42,000 somewhere. Now, they could do that by thinking outside the box. What can you do that you might be able to conserve a little bit more on a controllable expense? And I'm only asking them to do it on controllable expenses, things that they actually control. Pens, paper, pencils, how you do things. Look at it a different way. Save money. Postpone doing something a little bit longer as far as how they operate. And they could most likely generate $42,780 or a combination of that and revenue. Other than that, this is pertaining to you. Other than that, you could look at generating additional revenues, and that comes from, if the county sales tax goes up, any bump in that will offset that $42,000 just with a revenue swing. So there's nothing that says that you can't do that. And then if they need something that has been cut, they can come back with a budget amendment. By that time, we would know a little bit more of the trend of the revenue stream, and you could make an informed decision as to whether you want to allow that or not. But it forces them to come to you and justify it just like they do any other budget resolution. It might mean that they'd have to do a few more. It's not saying that everything's off the table, but it's saying you are going to hold them to a specific number, and after that, they have to come to you. And you have a critical look at what the revenue streams are doing, what the expenditures are doing, and have them justify why they absolutely need the item or whatever it is. And that goes for all departments. So it's a bitter pill, and I'm just the bearer of the news. You can say, hey, I don't care, let's go back to the original budget and we'll do it. That's fine with me if you want to do it. You guys control that. I just am showing you the numbers and giving you some advice on, the trend has got to stop. If you do the 15%, a recommendation that I would give you is this, that you do that for 1 year and you move it back to 20% in all subsequent years, and you adopt the ordinance for that you will scrutinize and be mulling over this year. You adopt that along with the trigger points that you will refine and decide on what you want in there. And those are mandatory things that happen at the next budget. So as you see right here, this budget with a 15% contingency percentage off of the operating expense, that's putting us about 12.6% below. Our targets right now are 25, 50, I think it's 10. Let me look at it. I got so many numbers floating around in my head. Okay. Our current is 10%, 25%, 50%, and 75%. So when you get 10%, there's a certain trigger that goes into effect that says capital items are postponed. Any capital item that's built in, and that would strongly affect the police department because they don't have any relief for capital expense from a city sales and use tax where the other departments do. But anybody that has a capital project or a capital expenditure, whether it's an office piece of equipment or any of that, that would stop. You wouldn't have that. That's a trigger point. If you get to above 50%, personnel reductions are a trigger point. You would first attack those budgeted items that are not filled, and then you would look at a hard look at whether you need to do staff reductions. But that's really getting, if you're below 50% of the actual amount that's listed for your contingency, you've got some significant budget issues that you need to be looking at. So I would recommend that if you did that 15%, it's a 1-year deal. 20%, it goes up in 2027's budget for 2027, and you seriously adopt the recommended AML, recommended contingency ordinance that we tweaked for the city. I've already tweaked it, but obviously we're not anywhere close to having it reviewed and approved in a 3 reading. And then what I call the fiscal performance policies, which talks about how we're going to conduct our day-to-day business. So what it's saying is we understand where we are, we have a plan going forward, and we've got to stem that tide and kind of turn it around. You missed a lot, Ron. I know, I'm sorry.
One question,
Yes.
when you reduced the increase in the insurance expenditures from 15 to 7.5, you said it only went up 3 last year. Does that hold fairly? I mean, does the trend support that?
We saw a trend that was about 5 to 8% in before the last 3 or 4 years before the catastrophes started happening all over. And then the insurance industry went berserk. And when it did, we saw 11, 12, 15, we even saw 24%. And then we had that. That was an original submission to us. And that's when we looked at the deductible buyback, and we looked at changing from B something. No, was that that wasn't our property, was it? That's health. Pardon? No. We're with Travelers now. Who we were with before Travelers. No, it was the group that managed our insurance that did all that was. It's not. It's. Oh, I'll get it.
Hillary Clark or whatever is it?
No, that's our health insurance. The bottom line, we switched from EIC, I think it was. EHC, that's it. We went from EHC to Travelers, because Osborne's not an insurance company. They're an agent that puts you with and places you with insurance companies. And we switched and that helped us, but then we had that deductible buyback gap insurance that we needed. And then we decided that we would change the deductible on that possibly and or not include in that, and it lowered the amount of the amount. We do work that. So every year, that's a kind of a battle that I have with Osborne as far as, and they're very willing to work with us, even to the extent of keeping and holding down the rates based on their commissions. So it's a deal though, but it's something that I think we could look at every year. And if we're short of it, we can look at creatively looking at the insurance itself. If we end up being less than what the 7.5% is, that drops right to their bottom lines, because that's a budget gap that's favorable.
And I just want to visit one, back when we were looking at the street budget in the last meeting, did you ever figure out if you had filed a claim?
Yeah, and I've got that taken care of now.
So are we receiving a reimbursement for that?
We will, yes.
You know
So
how,
I'm gonna put that towards the repair of that tractor.
okay, about how much was that?
2,500? Somewhere in there.
Okay.
Okay, so,
He's taking out the cost of the new tractor.
I'll pull
That
that
75,000
back.
is gone.
I'm gonna go ahead and get to the street now, just to kind of bring it all into perspective, and then we can start talking about some things that we needed to look at. There we go. So this is the street department. The reason I'm bringing them in is because while they're not necessarily in a critical nature status right now, budgetarily wise, they're in a downward spiral. And when you look at the amount of projects that are being pushed off as a result of I'll show you, you're seeing it, it's right here. This is your operating revenues from 22 all the way to 25. 22, we had $1.2 million in revenues. We have now $1.3 million in the operating revenue on street. That's a 4.67% increase since 2022. Since 2022, our operating expenses have increased 32.85%. That's operation expenses. It's not the city sales and use tax. It's not sidewalk. It's this. So that's the staffing and the things to operate that department. That is totally unsustainable. Okay. So that's why I'm sounding the alarm, and I've been sounding the alarm on that. But down here, you'll see their fund balance. It is, if you wanted to say in all respects, healthy, but it's not a healthy trend. So when you look at the street O&M, that is the live bank account. That is what we have at Farmers Bank for all the monies. There is no checking account called sidewalk checking. That's a live account. No live city sales and use tax. These are virtual accounts to account for a restricted use. So when you look at the bank account shows 4,000,001. That's what it does. But you break it out between its components, it breaks out in that way from 21, 22, 23. That was a spend on the sidewalk projects, and then that was covered in 24. That was your ending balance. Here's your ending balances in 25. So we went from about $4 million, 4.5, 4.1, 4 million, to the extent that 1.9 to 1.7. You don't see a lot of movement in here on $500,000 being generated every year to that department through city sales and use tax, because that's $511,000 is all that they get in a year. So that means these projects were either not done or being pushed off, primarily due to the COVID years right here. There was some reasoning for it. And now projects are starting, but you see the depletion from 4 million to 2.6 million in 25, and it'll go to 1.7 in 26 as a result of a large deficit being created or generated budget-wise, not actual, by the city sales and use tax street, because they're gonna spend this 598,000 plus 511,000 and the difference to make up this $587,000 in a hole. Now, that would be covered by this $1.9 million. That's gonna have to cover that. That's gonna shift up to the street O&M. And so that's why it's showing 1.7. That would be the all-in bank account balance in 2026.
That includes the turnbacks, Tom?
Let me show you the turnbacks. I'm gonna share you some information on that. That's an interesting question. And I pulled up the 5-year history. This is the 5-year real history on street. Ooh, man, I guess I better lower that down, okay. I know the numbers, so I will just tell you these two numbers right here that you see in this column. Let's look at 25. 379 is the property tax or the tax turnback. And then the $804,000 in 25 was the state turnback money. That's the largest contribution to the O&M side of the street department. If you look at 2021 all the way to now, that number's flat. That turnback stays relatively the same. So I thought, is that an anomaly? Let's look at that even closer. Let's go and look at the tax. So the tax in 2021, we received 340 to 354 to 365 to 375 to 379. That's a growth based on tax. It's flat. That virtually ties directly into, unless I'm wrong, and it could be, ties into property tax. Where's your growth?
Let's don't understand how that could be, because we're one of the, Sebastian County's personal property taxes are just,
Oh, okay. So the increase, we did talk about that too. The increase could be not, it could be the appraised value that's generating the additional revenue and not actual new homes being built and generating revenue as part of new taxable property. You're absolutely right in that regard. Though that could even be worse scenario, because that means the growth in our tax revenues for that period of time is based on assessed values, not on actual sales of new
And
homes.
From until this year, we were on a 5-year reappraisal cycle, and so that kept them all flat for 5 years. And we did that for twice, we did that 10 years.
So take
So for now,
what you said aside,
yep,
how do you grow then? How would you grow that tax?
they're gonna have to,
New homes,
New homes,
sell new
yeah.
homes,
Yeah.
grow your city.
yep.
That's the only way to do it if you're gonna be on a 5-year rotation for appraisals.
But we're down to a 3-year now, as of next year we'll start.
And I get just got my appraisal, and I'm gonna help that a little bit.
Yay, good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've already seen it for mine.
But that was a good question. I just wanted you to see.
And then
So,
the 804,000, that's, state turnbacks based upon per capita.
That's however the state turnback comes to us. I mean, we get a note every year from AML about what that's gonna do, but it is per capita, yes. But it's laying flat.
so within the street department operating budget, do we have any line items that are contributing more than others to that trend?
Well, one of the things I did was, you see this 221,000 is 150. The 150 is the sidewalk transfer for the sidewalk fund. I removed that from my calculation that showed 36%. Let me go here. When I go back to this number of $1.2 million in operating expense is negating that 221 and that 150, because those are transfers to the sidewalk department to cover their shortfalls and to fund their building of sidewalks. And it wasn't happening in the previous years, so I didn't want it skewing the number. So I took that out, but if I go down to the bottom, you'll see that the actual amount was 1.5 million. So the anomalies that were there, I wanted to remove, so it kind of apples to apples. But the 5-year history, I'll drop that down to 100%, maybe that'll put more on the screen. And then it just raised it right back, didn't it? There we go. So the 5-year history kind of shows you the trends. And I gave all this information to Jeff when we started looking at it. Fees professional, we had a big increase there for some of the work that was happening regarding some of the future projects that are on his books.
Excuse me, thank
Oh, you gonna have to leave?
you. No, I'm good. No, sneeze,
Yeah,
we're good.
make him do it. I don't necessarily see anything that kind of really stands out, except the numbers in the expense lines are rather high. Here, you're looking at uniform expense going from 6,000 to 10. A lot of that, I don't know about that. 10, 11, 10, that would be he'd have to tell you all about that. 11 to 18, 77, 76, a lot of it could be, if it's materials and supplies, it could be inflationary driven. Salaries went from 280 to 476. Now, remember, we were only using 22's numbers, so you would be looking here. So when you looked at salaries, it'd be 320 to 476.
That's quite a jump.
Did your staff size change? You wouldn't know. Well, yeah, 22. Did your staff size increase? No?
Well, only by the one person. We did have filled in 22, got filled in 23.
That's a big jump.
And then there was some turnover in that particular position.
So what else could be that jump?
What about your summer laborers?
That too, they weren't using them before.
Yeah.
We had like four,
When we inherited another 3 miles, that's where my summer help came in, was keeping that moving.
The war on drainage had an impact, right here. The drainage expense went up.
Tom, are you showing that turnback money in their budget? In the street budget as revenue?
Yes. You think it should be isolated?
No, I was just,
I would like it to be. I would like to pull it out of there and move everything that's related to it into its own virtual account so that we can restrict it. And we can very easily show this money was used for drainage, sidewalks, and street repairs. Right now, it's hard to do that. I'd have to go back and analyze every single expenditure to tie back to the use of that money. I'd support that.
What do you need to do that?
I do too.
What do you need to do that?
Tom,
Your blessing.
Do it.
Talked about it several times.
Does it
I'd
require
say-
a resolution?
I'd say do it the first time we get asked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say do it.
I do too.
ordinance to restrict money like that.
Sure.
Establish the virtual
Yeah.
account.
Yeah, that's an ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay, we'd need an ordinance.
Can you
Well, let's,
draft
We
one?
can do it,
February meeting,
sure.
we can do it at the next voting meeting, anytime you want.
And that, what that would do is that would give a clearer picture of the usage for the capital spend, and it would give a better picture of the operating side.
Right.
So it would parse out.
So can you draft up one?
Oh, sure.
Good.
Tom, with your tweaking, I guess what I'm looking at is this thing that,
no twerking.
There's something I didn't need to see tonight. With my
that's a vision
tweaking.
I can't get out,
I got to sleep tonight. Close my eyes.
I guess I'd still like to say that, yeah, the trend is not our friend, and, I'm thinking that, to me, I said, we still need to kind of bring it in where, if we're projecting this amount of revenue, our expenses need to match that. We don't need to be, borrowing from the, surplus. And I like to see, if you go back there again to see, where, our shortfall is, and then, just, and saying that, I think we really need to,
I guess it's your,
When
it's
you
not
say-
my decision though, but it would be yours as to your comfort level as to where you feel this year we could survive the year at with the balance that we currently project that's unrestricted general fund's gonna go. And of course, during your budget quarterly meetings, you'll be able to see that trend and I can show it to you.
One more, just remind me, do we have any unfilled positions that we budgeted for?
I mean, I could go look.
Because I'm
They're out
thinking
there.
that we could at least say, let's not fill any positions. Just, I mean, that's just a thought, but it's a hard one, but.
Like I
well,
said,
I like that 15% there. I mean, because I said, I think it's a starting point. I mean, I would sure like to see it 20%, but I think if we followed up with a contingency plan that's saying, that we're gonna have to, abide by and get it up there to the 20%. Cause I know this is a big adjustment year, but in order to get that 755, you said we have to still come up with another 95,000 worth of, tweaking. Is that right?
either word is bad. Tweaking has to deal with drugs.
But, I mean, that's what we have to really do to get to that 755, is to do another 95,000.
Let me do this. Let me go to the insurance, the general insurance. I want to see something.
Where you're looking now, ask Chief a question. So, Chief, how long does it take you to hire somebody? They gotta go through, I guess it depends on if they're coming from another department or if they gotta go through the whole school.
It'll take them 3 months to get them in that position. If you hire somebody that's not certified, that's doing all their medical, their mental, their background checks, depending on how far we gotta travel, it takes 2 to 3 months. We try to get them into the next academy, we try to hire, excuse me. I feel like I deserve, you deserve to speak in front of you. It depends if they're certified or not, and then we try to line that up with when the academy starts, because it really doesn't do us, just kind of sitting in limbo, if they're sitting there not going to the academy. So we try to put it up to where the academy starts.
So does the budget as it is reflect that you're not paying but 9 months of it?
No.
Potentially?
I apologize to you. I've got my notes on the budget that I submitted to you a couple of weeks ago. I've not seen what the changes that he has made, so I haven't been able to study it. I would like to study what
Yeah.
the changes were made before I brief you on
Sure.
Here's your copy.
what was changed, because
So I'm just thinking there might be some potential savings there, just because of timing. We're not gonna get somebody right on board to start paying now, so.
we won't meet the January, academy. We won't make the first academy, so it'll probably be a couple of months before we hire. I had a full crew this whole year. I lost Tanner Mathis to the state police, and I'm gonna lose Garrett Ford to the Oklahoma State Police. They both pay in the $80,000 to $90,000 range, with free insurance, family insurance.
agencies around me, around this area, are starting to pay a $5,000 to $10,000 sign-on bonus for certified officers. And they're
Jumping on board.
paying money. It's, we're in demand, and we're competing against that, so.
Well,
I can't speak for all the other departments here, but if we're gonna cut money, I would hate to see us cut for public safety first.
no, I was just saying, if it did take 3 months, I think this is what Ralph was getting at, then our budget should reflect 9 months of expenditures. And that's just on paper. That's not real money. It's just saying instead of,
Right, it's
Yeah.
saving a little bit of the salary.
it's
for
just
the 3 months.
making
Just
your
because of
budget that much
timing.
more realistic.
Yeah, we're gonna save some money, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will save some.
To go along with what you're saying, that's exactly what we did on the code enforcement for the planning department. If they're looking to hire that person in, if they get the go-ahead on their budget, we reduced the annual salary based on the hire date, the actual hire date of that start. And it did make an impact on their budget. Their budget went from minimal to $14,000 contribution back to the general fund.
Kudos.
We've touched all the low-hanging fruit. They can do the same thing on their officers and then give me those numbers, and that probably would make up the whole difference.
Well, not just in personnel, but I know they were asking for a few trucks or vehicles. That's
Okay.
another expense that could be delayed.
We already took that, and I'm gonna go into that right now. That's why I didn't want them to have that.
So just real quick, going off of what I was just given two minutes ago in front of you, I would like to have this morning to go over it and prepare to talk to you. The capital expenditures was cut, which one is the key card access to the building. I have no option but to upgrade that to our new server. That's roughly, I think, was $8,500 based on the old, I'm not, $6,500. I have to get that done. And that's for us to stay in compliance with DOJ because we have the secure networks, the NCIC, ACIC. So that's one of the things that was taken out. The two cars, the three cars that I was asking to trade in, took out two cars. I was gonna trade in those three cars.
Can we talk about that? Let me explain, then you can rebut. Okay, because you're rebutting, and then I'm gonna have to counter that. I'd rather counter it first and show you the rationale behind that. Now, nothing says that this was in stone. What I was doing is presenting to them a more aggressive look at a budget. Yes, certainly you would have the opportunity to come back to the council and say, we need this. And you could have done it with a resolution and say, we need this, here's why. And even though it was taken out of the budget, I think it needs to be added back. And I already addressed that with all the directors. That's your option. Your option is it's not there in the original budget. If you need it, come back and justify it. And you just did, which is fine. But I didn't have time in the week that everybody was not here to get all of you together and go through it. I put finishing touches on this today. Now, we had a discussion, the mayor and I, and we had a discussion about the vehicles. And number one is, are these vehicles actually in service right now? Are they in service? In other words, are you using them? Okay, that's what he had a question about. So they're out of commission tells me that they're not being used. Okay? What we were saying is, instead of $100,000, which is what you had budgeted basically for that with the trade, the 62 and the outfitting of 36, by doing that, what if you put a transmission into that, into the ones that need a transmission? $100,000 versus $5,500. I saved how much money? I'll trade you $11,000 for two transmissions in two of the vehicles instead of buying two vehicles, and I saved $80,000.
Well, I'm gonna trade 3 vehicles on that one and purchase other. If I fix those vehicles that are sitting on by the fence, one's got 93,000 miles on it, one's got 97,000 miles on it, the other's got 96 or some odd thousand miles on it.
I hear you. That's the discussion between you two. All I'm saying is, here's what I did. Well, for your answer, but I'm saying the mileage, I don't know why
And
that's,
What we're looking at right
a
now is
design.
we're under, to me, I don't say unprecedented times or whatever, but we're under, trying times because we never really thought that our sales tax dollars would kind of go down, Here we've seen it go down. We don't know if it's going to be a continued trend or not, but I'm not, I can turn on the 6 o'clock news and see that it's not just us. It's across all cities and stuff. And, we've been, borrowing from our surpluses, for years now. And I'm saying, and what we're trying to do is, I think, I don't know, but just trying to see what we can do to buy time and stuff. And so say, whatever expenses we don't really have to do, if we can kick our expenses down the road instead of kicking our surpluses, down the road. That's, to me, what we're trying to look at here.
I took some notes, Kristen and I worked on this today, there's places that I could save a little bit of money. And you're starting with the police first, we need roughly $95,000. I could cut one car out of it, take the trade-ins, and at least get another car. I don't see, as a taxpayer or a business manager or a manager, putting $6,500 into a vehicle that, got 100,000 miles on it. I also have to make sure those cars are well kept and well running for when I have somebody in there and I'm taking them to jail, because I assume all the risk when they're in my car. I can't really cut the other portion, the building, the access cards to the building, because I have to meet that DOJ requirement. We came up with what we could cut roughly today, and we'll start with the police first.
Hey, Brad, can I interrupt you for a second? Chief, I'm sorry. So to go back to what Tom said earlier, he and I did have conversation on your budget and everybody else's budget before I left for Little Rock Municipal League. And I apologize to you. I've not been able to visit with you about what he and I discussed, and it was very specifics. And Tom, I think, will admit, along with me, when he and I are talking about vehicles together, it's two guys that don't mechanic, if you will. That's not what I do, and that's not what he does. So we were tossing ideas of back and forth of what could be done, and I apologize very profusely to you for not having a private conversation. I don't know that this is the format for it, but it is what it is, and that's okay. So what makes sense, and I did ask questions, I don't know what 90,000 miles, I know what it means to a private car. I don't know what it means to a police car. I assume it's a lot harder. Those 90,000 miles on a police car is a lot harder than the 90,000 my wife drove. So I think that's where you're headed with your point. Yeah, and idling time, I don't know about that. So, but the question was brought up due to Mr. Brown's points here, is that we're all trying to do the best we can to figure something out. What does that look like? What does that make sense to a car? And I'm talking real world, because you only know that, and your patrol officers only know that. So I would just take that as, could that be something we could look at? And I don't mean you, I mean the us as a group, and I don't know, it may not make sense at all. And if my car broke down, I'll just go a little bit farther. If my car broke down with transmission, I'm gonna have to put a transmission in it, because I can't afford a new one. But I'm not patrolling the city of Greenwood either, and driving it like you guys have to, so. I just wanted to say that conversation did happen, and you should have been brought into it a little bit quicker than today, but go ahead with your.
The opportunity
Yeah,
to go over it real fast
absolutely.
and kind of see what was changed.
Sure. No, I got that. I get that.
Hey, another question, Brad. If you have a transmission fixed, you take it, I guess, to a professional here in town?
We used to take it to Bulldog, but now we take it to the transmission doctor.
Out on the highway.
Yes, sir.
I'm just thinking, I mean, what does a transmission cost, and what is it?
The last one was $5,500.
So, I mean, we've got three mechanics in the street department. I mean, is that something that they could do, or do they have to
We
be?
talked about that, you know, just in our department head meetings, and I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, you're good.
But we talked about that is, you know, the city could probably save a lot of money by, you know, we could put brakes, do the oil changes, brakes over here if we had, I mean, he's got people, but that would take away from him on a time where we don't have the money to hire anybody, it'd take away from his personnel.
Yeah.
But we talked about that. I don't know if they can do transmissions.
Right.
That's pretty specific.
Right. Even mechanics don't.
You had a guy one time, but I don't think he's over there anymore.
Vehicle maintenance on cars, mechanics is through the roof.
Well, I
Our
know.
bills have gone through the roof.
I'm just, that's what I'm thinking, if there's things that we take, I mean, take breaks and things like that, if we could do it ourselves in-house.
Anything we can do to help.
And it would help me tremendously, cause it'd be preventive maintenance instead of after.
Oh my gosh, it's down,
I'm willing to cut where I can. I don't know,
Well-
I did take some notes and I'll go over. Animal services, if I'm, we can run the cut,
Thanks.
$2,500. We mentioned the office supplies earlier, we already dropped that from 3,020 to 2,500. And we spent $3,100, so things are just expensive. Stuff has gone up over the years.
I'm wondering if we could maybe, I mean, just the way we negotiate contracts with somebody who cleans the building, could we maybe look at some of these folks that do the work on our vehicles and tell them, hey, you're getting all the work, can we shave a little bit off for the volume of work that we're doing? Maybe, I don't know, I'm just,
To spend in Greenwood when
Yeah.
we do our maintenance. There's
Yep.
a couple of few things that we just can't, we have to take up to Christmas. But we try to stay in this area to do our maintenance.
yeah.
The Tahoes, that engine from that particular year model, y'all are familiar with this, those engines from that year model were just bad, and the oil mixed with the water, they had the cylinder deactivation. They're just bad model years. I'm not a car person, I wish I was, but I just know this stuff's expensive.
Your hours versus mileage is 5 miles for every hour that it runs. So you've got 99,000 miles, equivalent to 495,000 miles.
100 is equivalent to 500, basically what you just said?
The idle time,
The idle time.
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
And the way you have to
For
drive.
every hour that you idle, it's like 5 miles. And so if you take the mileage, the motor running,
I just know that, as far as the risk versus the reward, y'all have a great police department that's highly trained and highly educated. There's other cities that are getting fined right now, and if this would've been 3 years ago, you would've probably been looking at a fine for our records and our training. We're in compliance and you've got a
Oil the machine.
old machine, it's not gonna, that the risk is very minimal. And I would hate to think that we're gonna cut from public safety first, when last year the fire department pretty much saved 3 subdivisions in one day. And that's all hands on deck, that's fire and police working together. Pretty much saved 3 subdivisions in the same fire, and then worked, 3 fatalities that night. And I would hate that we would cut from public safety first. I understand it's a down year, it's a bad year. We can cut, give me and Kristen a few minutes to come up and do our magic. If you need 95,000 between all of us, we'll come up with it. And if we know the rules of the game, before we get up here and talk to you, we'll be able to give it to you, we'll be able to do it. I will say this, as a taxpayer, y'all had no qualms about building a tunnel for 500,000. There's other places that we built the backyard of somebody that has some drainage issues. I want all that stuff too, I do, I want a nice tunnel to run under, I want Tanya to be safe while she's on the trail. But don't cut where we don't need to cut, is my only ask. And we'll go, I'll work the magic, and Kristen, if you'll give us about 10 minutes, we'll come up with.
No, not 10. This isn't designed for you to give me the budget today. You take the time you need and get that budget back to me, like within the next couple of days, I'd be appreciative of that. This isn't sit down and we're not gonna hash out your budget, because,
95,000.
hold on a minute, I wanna clarify one thing. You keep saying, don't cut from public safety first. We're cutting from all departments, not you first. You're part of it, you're in it. You see this line right here? Everybody's equal. Initially, we took 11.17%, which is this right here, 11.19, and we said, everybody gives that up. You just happen to have the largest amount to have to contribute because everybody's sharing the pain alike. Somebody that only has a budget of 588,000, giving up 65,000 of them is a huge thing for them. That's not taking it from you first. That's saying everybody shares in this pain alike, just equally distributed. It's up to the city council as to how they want to divvy up that pain. If they say, you need to cough up a lot more. And what I was trying to show is that the departments that are contributing back to the general fund right now, even after I've looked at their budgets, which is right here, this is the one that's got the greatest amount of impact to the city's unrestricted general fund, and that's an unsustainable thing. So there's got to be some.
It's always been the biggest expense. I wish it wasn't, but it has.
But the thing is, if you go back to that previous slide there, right there, that 787,
Let me go back.
I mean, nobody can, a private entity or a city cannot sustain, spending, $787
Per day.
Per day.
More.
And so that's what we're that's the only thing we're looking at. And I have to agree with Tom. We're not picking out on you, Chief, because I take pride in what y'all do. We're one of the safest towns, in the state, and you do an excellent job, and you're doing an excellent job with animal control. I mean, everything that you have taken on, you've done well and stuff. It's just that we're looking across the board, and it is no fun to cut back. I mean, that's why in the past years we've always said, hey, let's balance the budget by just taking from surplus, and we've done that till we're at a crossroads now where we just can't do that anymore because we may be in jeopardy of, gosh, if we have a big ice storm or if we have a tornado that comes through the center of town, where's that money going to come from and stuff, and we need to be responsible to say, we really have to have a surplus, and yes, it's going to be painful for you to cut. It's going to be painful for the Parks Department to cut and for the streets, but we've got to live within our income, and we haven't done that for the last 4 or 5 years because we've always been balancing the budget from robbing from the surplus. I say robbing, but pulling money from the surplus. And so that's what we're trying to do. And yes, you haven't had a chance to see the adjustments and stuff, but I think that's, what we're having to say is that adjustments are going to have to be made across the board. And so that's what I think, Ralph is looking at when we're trying to say, yes, you say it is throwing maybe, bad money after, good, but if we can say, if we can fix a transmission and it gets us 9 months for $5,500 instead of, $95,000 right now, because I'm thinking this is not going to be a permanent thing. I'm thinking that, better times are ahead and our sales tax dollars are going to increase, that this is not a definite trend, that it's going to stay this way forever. But for right now, like saying, until we see the trend, because it improved the last 6 months of last year. We thought it was going to be far worse, when we looked at the first 6 months of last year, but it ended up improving. And so I think it's going to, continue to improve. But it is what it is right now. Our income last year was less than what we budgeted, but it also was less than what we brought in 2024. If I understand that right, Tom. And so, we have to, it's just a time that we have to tighten our belts across each department.
I agree with what I want to live within my
can't imagine
Chief,
that line
that
won't go up
these
till after 10 finds.
conversations
I can't
are
imagine that
better,
line
I
won't
mean,
go up after 10
it's kinda
finds.
tough, we're hunting money, and everybody's gonna have equal share in that. But it's better to have this conversation now than maybe 6 months, a year from now, we're talking about a RIF, you know, a reduction in force. And so if it comes down to fixing up some old cars to keep us from getting to that conversation, that's a great thing to do. But you know what, you know those needs, kinda like the access system, you know, we gotta have it. We got to have that now. But to AC's point, if a transmission could get you 12 months down the road till maybe there's better days and we can maintain our staff and not have a RIF, you know, be having conversations about a RIF, because when we're having conversations about a RIF, all this stuff doesn't matter. We're looking for bodies to get rid of, so we can come back up in the black, so. I think my point of it is if we knew that the department heads knew the number that we needed to get to, we could have been working throughout the day to get that number for y'all tonight.
We've got till January 31st to sign off on it, so. At midnight.
Looks like 11.8%, that's what we're, 11.8? Is that what
What
you're?
was it?
Well,
From the
as-
current
But
budget,
Brad,
from the current
just-
budget's
you
11.19%.
the thing that's so compelling is putting the people, if the transmission does not compromise the safety of one of the officers. So I don't know if a vehicle like that could have a transmission and be used in a lesser capacity by someone, resource officer, anything like that. But certainly, if the transmission, only if everybody's safe, because we don't want to compromise the safety of one of our officers for that. That's not a good trade-off, but it is a good trade-off if it doesn't compromise their safety for like a year. We're just trying to think outside the box for anything that helps the budget.
The value of those three cars, the unit 3, the value is $6,000, unit 7 is $2,500, unit 17 is $8,000. That, the transmission would be
As much as the value of the cars, that was.
Trade-in value,
That's the trade.
trade-in value, yeah, not the value of the car. That's what you would have to get for it is trade for another vehicle, yes. But what we're saying is, if you could get a year out of that vehicle, we're saving this year on our current budget, the equivalent of about $90,000, which is a huge chunk of your budget right now. But if you look at this is unsustainable given what we know is happening on the general fund. So we need to be thinking major creative. I don't want to solve the problem just for 1 year. That's the point. I want to solve this problem to reverse this trend so that we stay above, keep our heads above water. So we need to be creative as far as every department, but I guarantee you, every one of them can come up and do exactly what you did today. They could come up and justify not cutting their budget for this reason and that reason and that reason. And I'm well aware of that. We've had this conversation. I had it with the mayor. I said, I guarantee you, he is going to fight for everything in this budget, regardless of what we do. If you'll notice, we did increase your vehicle repairs and maintenance to justify the cost of a transmission in that. So we adjusted your budget in both directions. However, it's not like we didn't give any thought. That was not willy-nilly. It was to generate some interest in them to say, instead of merely, because their directive to me could have been, cut everybody 11%, and they live with it.
I was just explaining to Mr. Steve, that's the reason why we were looking at trading in versus buying the transmission.
I got it.
This is the reason, it's just the value of the
Yeah.
car versus how much the transmission.
But you might increase your trade-in value by putting a new transmission. I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter.
I don't want to interject two thoughts, which may or may not mean anything to anybody but myself. But Mr. Brown mentioned earlier, we're tornado shy of a or you know what he said, tornado, ice storm, whatever. So, and that's a scary place to be in. I don't know that you can ever get away from that totally. I don't think you can ever get away from that totally, but who we would, and nobody, everybody knows this, I'm just stating fact. The people that we would rely on to help us in that situation would be the police department and the fire department when those things happen. That's who we turn to. So they've got to be top notch. And I'm not saying anything everybody doesn't agree with. They got to be top notch. They got to have the best equipment we can afford at the time. I think it is worthwhile, Chief, looking, and beating a horse to look at some ideas. And I'd be glad to sit with you and anybody that's got equipment and vehicles to go to our local mechanics and maybe have a meeting, or maybe not a meeting, that probably wouldn't work out, but transmission guys, and say, hey, if we put you in line to fix these cars for a while, let's talk about that and get an idea. And the other thing is, just real quick, as we're talking about all this, and this has got to be talked about, and it is painful, as Mr. Powell mentioned, it's hard on everybody, but we are here. Along with what we're doing today, we've got to also be on the other end of this and saying, what are we gonna do to fix it? And one is to do what we're doing, and the other is to do what you said, get more folks in Greenwood to spend their money. And I don't, that's an age-old question, how do you do that? We've been through programs to try to get that done, but we've got, I'm tickled to death with this new what is it? Issue 3 that's gonna be put out there to help all of us to have a tool, to get things and some incentive packages, which we've never thought about before. So I just want to say that and say we're in it all together. We got to figure it out. So
And I want to pat Brad on the back and his staff too, because I mean, this just goes to show how impactful grants can be.
yeah,
I mean, if we're looking for $60,000, $70,000, and his staff has done a great job finding grants, as our parks folks have. I mean, that's money that can help offset some of these costs. So, you know, I know you guys do, but I say just continue to keep your eyes open.
Yeah,
Any kind of chance you can for grants.
every department has done a really good job at that, for sure. Every year.
Can I,
Well, I just want to say, Chief, too, you know, you just basically inherited this department, you know, so you haven't had a long track record. But again, and I was like saying, I'm trying to reemphasize what the mayor and Tom's saying. It's not just you that we're saying, that the cuts have to apply to. It's, to everybody. And you're now just experiencing it firsthand, so you haven't had a chance to really, look at what you can, cut and what you can't and stuff. But and that's what we're doing right here, is we're throwing out ideas and saying, where can we do it, feasibly, and because, that's, we ideally, I would like to do that 11.19%, but if Tom says that, we can kind of get by with, 750,000 and it just be, like I said, 6.9% or whatever, then I said, I'm willing to do that with commitments to say we're going to, work our way up there. And so, again, you're doing a great job, Chief.
I've been doing this for a little over 2 years now. I take full responsibility. The budget that I submitted to you was the budget that, my staff worked on and we presented. It's not a frivolous budget by no means, but we'll look at it. We know what we need to do and we know what we need to, look at, and I'll give Mr. Tom, what he requested. And I think my only, thing was just getting it right now, trying to speak to it off the cuff, and having my notes on what I presented earlier was my only, point I was trying to make.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate Jeff too. I think, I take pride that we are a first-class, city, but we're also a small city. And I appreciate you, Jeff, saying, if there's anything that, we can do mechanic-wise or whatever, that your department's willing to help,
We have actually already, so, and we'll do anything we can to help them.
And that'll be, I think that's great. I appreciate that.
so I want to go on the record to say that I was charged with doing what I did to present back to them to show what potentially could be done. There was no intention to just say, let's go with that without any discussion with the directors. because we had to find out how feasible it was based on where I saw some potential pad and/or some fat in the budget and remove it. And I also want you to hear this last thing. There's a call on the, I'll let him, can't hear over there.
It got canceled.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you could hear it. This is the contingency fund reserve statement that would go with the plan. What I'm trying to say is to stem the tide, we need to put in safeguards in place. We need to have triggers in place. We need to have something that is a plan of action. If we don't have that and we reduce our contingency down to 15% of the expenditures, which is a 5% below what's normal, we're going to be hard pressed to explain that in a bond rating call, for number one, because they look at contingency funds. And the other is this. It says contingency funds are for unexpected general fund, unrestricted general fund balance. It says the City of Greenwood should consider a variety of factors, including, one, the predictability of revenue and the volatility of expenditures. A high level of unrestricted fund balance may be needed if significant revenue sources are subject to unpredictable fluctuations or if operating expenditures are highly volatile. We were in that for the last couple of years, that volatility. Perceived exposure to significant one-time outlays resulting from disasters, unforeseen immediate capital needs, or state budget cuts. Right now, we're not experiencing that, but that's a possibility in the future. The potential drain on general fund resources from other funds or operating departments, as well as the availability of resources in other city funds. So the general unrestricted fund can give money to any department, anybody that needs it. You could allocate that money to them. You could help fund streets operations if you wanted to. Can't go the other way with restricted monies back to the general fund. So that's why this general fund is highly important, and every city knows that. Just watch the news on what you heard from yesterday in Fort Smith. The potential impact contingency funds have on the city's bond ratings and corresponding increased cost of borrowing. That's what's got me concerned, because I know we got some debt potential down the road, pardon the pun, potentially from street and from water sewer. Commitments and assignments of any portion of the city's unrestricted fund balance that have been committed or assigned for a current or future purpose, where you need to bail out a project, in other words. So that's all the reasons why I'm trying to maintain that instead of allowing that to slip. And then I also showed you that every year the city has not submitted what I consider to be a surplus budget. It's always been a deficit spend budget balanced by the unrestricted general fund in those 6 operating areas. In the days when I have it here, I want to show this. I want to go here, and I'll go up to general fund. And I want to show this. And I'm just the bearer of the bad news, and I do have a lot of ideas. They're not necessarily all going to be open-armed welcomed, I'm sure. But I do have a lot of ideas about how to make this work. I'm bringing that back down. So what I wanted to do is go back up to the general fund and show that, well, let's go to some of the years here. You'll see it down here. When the general fund was generating, like in this case, $669,000, $550,000 generally could have covered the majority of the police department's actual deficit, and it did. So that's why we generated $191,000, because the franchise taxes that we kind of reserved for the shortage in the police department they were within the range that it was absorbable and tolerable. And the amounts of the surpluses generated by fire, by animal services and parks more than covered it. So when you go down to the next few years, you're going to see that general fund surplus, which is what's the cause of alarm, has been dropping at a significant rate due to projects the general fund has on the books that are necessary and needed. And then you see we went back up to 370. We ended the year down as a deficit in the general department, the general and admin department. There's not the money to cover what used to be the money to cover, and that trend is only widening. The gap is widening. So that's why I'm we're not picking on a department. I don't want to come across that way. We are challenging everybody to say, hey, I couldn't even come up with 11% based on the budgets that were submitted. So there's got to be some out-of-the-box thinking. There's got to be some ways that the departments can start really crucially looking at turn off the lights, do something to lower our energy costs or whatever, to try to impact that as much as they can on the controllable expense side, stuff that you control. And then the other is we'll look at the hard look at the expenses that the finance department has control over. Some of the things that I think you're looking at the general fund, I hit them with a 4% reduction. He didn't even know it, because I haven't given him it's right here. But I just finished this today and got all this together. But the general fund, I removed a lot of things. One of the things that's probably not gonna sit well is the fact that the wiring in this building, or the thing that they were doing for $16,800, that's gone. We can wait one more year. You know, that type of thing. It's not that we're not gonna do it, it's that right now, it's not a good time. And then the other thing that I was putting in there is these trigger points would help safeguard. It's a selling point back to our argument to the bond rating company, that we have a plan. I see light at the end of the tunnel. One of the things that I know is coming down the pipe and that we've talked about is the potential for a public safety or a sales tax dedicated that is the recoupment of that quarter that came off of the county sales tax that now would be dedicated to the city. It's going to bring us back to the level we were before the county lost that quarter to UFAS, which benefited Greenwood in no way, shape, or form, just so you know it. That money was totally collected and dedicated to University of Arkansas Fort Smith. Once that money went away, it was free for the taking. We should have immediately jumped on that and grabbed it for the city of Greenwood. And when you do a sales and use tax, one of the things that you realize is that it doesn't put the burden solely on the citizens of Greenwood to fund expenses that benefit the city of Greenwood. It puts it on everybody that you draw into the city that buys in this town. So it's an expense that's borne by visitors and people that are not citizens here. It
Mansfield,
shifts.
Hackett.
Pardon?
Mansfield and Hackett fellas, we like them.
Yeah, come on up.
Oklahoma.
Can you explain again what we lost to the quarter that we lost to UFAS and what, I don't understand how that
County,
transpired.
the University of Arkansas Fort Smith was approved for, the county tax was, what was it, 1.25, I think? It was 1.25. That 0.25 was a tax that was voted on by the citizens for the support of the University of Arkansas Fort Smith. It came up for a renewal, and the citizens voted against it. So UFAS lost the quarter, and so the county sales tax dropped to 1%. Now, that 1%, whatever is collected, is being distributed per capita to us, but that quarter was dedicated, sort of like our road bond, totally to UFAS. Well, once that quarter went away, and the citizens were paying 9.75%, we went down to 9.5. It didn't affect our city sales and use tax, but it affected the overall tax collection for what the citizens are being charged and anybody else that shops in this area. Okay. If we jumped on that quarter and said to the citizens, who would be the ones voting for it, we would say, could we go after and get that quarter to stay at 9.75, but now claim that back to the city so that we would be able to use that for police, which don't have a city sales and use tax for them to fund their capital. This discussion would be moot if they had $500,000 a year more being generated by that tax. So I see that down the road.
And that's good, because they mentioned something about that municipal league, and I remembered you talking about that, so I was just trying to figure out how it'll fit in. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, going back to, we were looking at 11.1, but then you said that, it's feasible that we could do the 755 or whatever at 6.9, but we still need to kind of come up with another 95,000 spread across the departments. Is that it?
That's if you were to get back to the
Seven,
15%,
15%,
the seven hundred and
contingency.
fifty-five thousand, yes. I want to move this out.
Well, I would like to see that. I don't know. I'd like to hear what y'all comment.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we could do the 15% this year, like Tom suggested, and then shoot for 20% each subsequent year, I think I think it's much more achievable, and it's an easier pill to swallow.
And that there's nothing that, like saying, come June or, you know, the second half of the year, we see the trend is working in our favor, that, you know, each department comes back and says, hey, we have this special request or whatever, you know, that we want to, you know, put back in the budget, or that, you know, we want to, you know, ask for and stuff, you know, because again, I don't see that these are,
That's the benefit.
permanent or whatever.
Yeah, that's the benefit of having those quarterly budget meetings, is to, you know, adjust as we go.
Well, some of the things you guys have suggested, and I don't know that how well it's gonna work, but certainly it's worth department heads talking to each other about is, and I, again, don't throw rocks at me, but sharing equipment. I've spoken to a couple of departments already, and they both look right at me and go, really? You don't think we're gonna need that at the same time they're needing that? And I get that, but it gives some time, like you said, Mr. Brown, 6 months for, use Jeff and Tim or somebody, for example, and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And for the future, now, I don't, you know, you took your tractor out already, and that was a 70, I went to Jeff, and it took me one phone call to say, hey, and he already knew what I was gonna ask, and so he took it out and decided he could do with what he's got this year and do the best he can. So those conversations can happen and will happen amongst these guys and gals, including Tanya. So in 6 months, you may see a whole different request that doesn't mean $75,000 from them. It may be 20 from everybody or something. I don't know. So I don't know where you're headed with all this, Tom. Are you gonna go through departments and kind of do,
No,
that was not your plan?
no, my plan was to show.
Okay. Well,
can
could
we
you
get
show,
it to
could
a-
you back that screen again where it's to the 15% contingency, and just say, kind of show where we need to do, kind of an additional, to get to that 15%?
What would it look like if we did 10 this year and 10 next year on top of that for the budget? I know that's not the most favorable option, but that would certainly ease some of the strain on some of these departments.
Okay, well, that is a good suggestion. I can make that 5. It doesn't matter. What number are they comfortable with, given what I just read about what a contingency's for?
Well, I think, you know, any number you put in there is the number you put in there, but if it's gonna, I mean, that would further impact our bond rating. I mean, with the contingency plan in place for coming back from that, it's a good idea, but that's a big risk. I mean, that's, I'm more comfortable with the 15, and, I mean, everybody's gonna have to look at their budget and just say, yeah, we're gonna have to find those things somehow.
I as well, more comfortable with the 15. I know y'all said that's what y'all are. We need to do something now and not be talking about a RIF in a year.
Agree.
I'm already wondering how that, in street department, boy, that's quite a jump between salaries. There needs to be a little deeper dive. I don't know what the explanation is. Bottom line is we're paying it, so that's it.
Can you show that one more time?
What
The change over the 5 years?
Talking about the 5-year,
Yeah.
yeah. This is the salary laborers line right here,
Well, it went from,
320, 476. About 150,000.
so where, I mean, did we add people during that time?
We had the extra help that wasn't being used, that in the budget, it just wasn't used. And then there was another position that wasn't being used, that we're using, because we can't put the extra help, they can't drive vehicles. We have to have a full-time person with them. And so that's what that full-time person does during the summer, is drive, those people and work with them.
get some cake.
Danielle, do you have any take on that, being HR? No?
What he's saying is correct.
No, I know that. Anything other than that?
I mean, he does have a lot of employees.
Well, yeah, but compared to what we had, what is
I
the,
mean, I can pull files and see, yeah,
I mean, have we added a lot of positions?
No, I mean, we haven't added any new positions in the budget whatsoever.
right, but you've gotta think, you've had merit raises, you've had cost of living, and so
Right.
it's gonna continue to go up. I mean, with that many employees, you're gonna see an increase.
Yes, sir. Total? Yes.
And that's also the revised budget that you submitted, correct?
Yeah, that's an additional 95.
Well, yes.
I have a suggestion for me. I need my budget to go back to what it was, and give me a,
Well, that's not been changed. Your budget's still intact. This is just I created a separate one for this. I have your other budget.
I can take off a car and outfitting of a car, but I need the budget, the original one that I sent. That'll get us, 57, that'll get us 57,000, right, Kristen? That's 57 of the 95.
If we go back to your original budget and everybody goes back to their original budget, you're $247,000 away.
Well, a couple of those is the fuel was from 55 down to 50, and we spent 50 this year, so I like that cushion of having the $5,000 worth of fuel, just in case we run into a problem.
Or fuel goes up. Because you
Hey,
make,
there's just a couple
Well,
things that
well-
I'd like to
That's
go
an argument
back to
everybody
the drawing board. I'll cut one of the cars, and that'll be half of the 95.
Well, that's what we're kind of looking at, is trying to
Can you scroll
tighten
up?
the belt as much as you can. Doesn't mean that you can't come back, because I mean, we'll always entertain the idea of saying, hey, fuel costs have gone up or whatever, I'm seeing this trend, but right now, we're just trying to present as a tightened budget as we can.
Yeah, so, Brad, you'd be looking at cut,
I don't feel like y'all are picking on me.
no,
I don't feel like you're picking on me. I feel like you're doing your job, but I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job to say, I need to look at this, because there's a couple of things that is, as a comfort level that I think that we should have.
so one vehicle and the outfitting, you said would be 50,
It's, 39,573 plus 18,000.
so you would surpass your 42,000, is what you would be.
Yes, sir.
But that's under the
It's-
revised budget that I did, the proposed revised
He's already knocked
example,
out
the
a
shock and
bunch.
awe, if I will.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
That's already a
what I'm
reduction of-
saying. Now, I kinda need
so we need to go back and look.
to go back and look, instead of cutting all those line items, because of the cut, like the K-9 was cut down to $1,000, or one vet bill to that dog is almost $1,000.
I can testify to
And
that.
we don't know, we don't know if it's coming,
Right.
Right, but what I'm saying is, when that comes up, because it's not line item at that point, it's bottom line. So maybe you've saved some other, maybe fuel's down, I don't know. Bottom line is, you can live with the absorbing of that additional cost to a point. And then it's, let's say in August, you can't live with it anymore and you're gonna need a budget adjustment. So you come to the city council then, after this budget's approved, and you justify needing the budget amendment. And when you do submit it to them, we will know, they will know what the revenue stream is now after 6 months worth or a quarter's worth of collections. So we'll know if the trend is positive and where you're gonna get extra money.
Understood, and I agree, I don't have a problem doing that. A couple of council members said, last year, you're coming back and asking for a revised budget when we passed the budget that y'all submitted to January, so if we know what the rules are, we will play by them.
Well, the rules in the past are needing to be changed, and that's what we're trying to do.
Sure.
How long were we holding the animals at the animal shelter? 30?
I will say this, we're about to submit a ordinance to you, and hopefully we can make a change to that. It's gonna be something you're gonna be proud of. Hopefully we can turn the tide and start making, at least recoup a lot of our money.
You've already-
Excited about that.
And you've already done a lot of that already with it.
Yeah, you have.
That vehicle in itself has 97,000 miles on it. That's something we didn't put in the budget for this year. We're praying it'll make it another
Oh,
year.
the truck.
We've already spent more than what it's worth on the animal control vehicle.
And we did do some of those repairs.
Yes.
So,
Casey, you had your hand up.
I talked to Tom about it the other day. Are we opposed to a hiring freeze? We're extremely overstaffed.
Where?
I'm saying, as a city, don't fuck me, Brett.
And I think for this year, we ought to review every new
Well, we had,
position that comes up, not an automatic rehire. Because it may come down to if there was an employee in the street department, or there's maybe an employee in the parks department that got, quit. And let's say, well, do you need them as bad as we got a police car where the transmission may fall out? And we know you're not interested in the police car's transmission falling out, but as a city, we're looking at the big
that
picture, we
scenario
are.
wouldn't- That scenario wouldn't help them.
That wouldn't help them?
I can't pay for stuff out of his department.
Well, I'm not talking about,
That's where,
Y-
that's
it's-
where this thought comes from.
It doesn't
It's
save
the-
them anything.
the employees hit the general fund.
Yeah, mine's not general funds, that would help.
All your employees are paid out of.
Street only.
Take your scenario out. Maybe, well, they have parks, fire, all the rest of them. We don't, we take a hard look at replacing it.
Sure.
Maybe Stuart's administrative assistant quit and found a better job, wanted to get away from him. I don't know.
that's possible.
All possible. Yeah, so that's when we take a better look. Hey, the pastures we think they're gonna be greener in 6 months. You're gonna have to hold off. Brad wants a police car. And,
Needs, please.
needs a police car, not want, needs.
Hey, Rod, I wasn't opposed to doing what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can not fill that position, it won't help anything, but as a,
Work
as
related on
board
code
thing,
enforcement.
I'd be glad to do that.
But if an employee,
Code enforcement.
if you were to lose an employee, it may be that there are things that you needed pretty bad to fix a tractor or replace a tractor, and hey, I'll put that off. The money's still gonna stay within my realm, in my paradigm, but I do need these maintenance things done.
Can we move personal money to operating,
Pardon?
well, can we move personal money to
Personnel.
Personnel,
personnel?
Oh, personnel money.
not personal.
Yeah, you move your personal money, it's called a donation.
If I say 35,000 my personnel, does that move over or
What?
to operate? Move to another line item?
It's, you're not, your bottom line is what's important, not line by line.
I know.
So if you save it in salaries for the year, it can offset an overage in another line item. Yeah, you can now. We're not line item in that. The only thing they restricted the line item was capital expenditures. That's because I would be doing 1 million budget resolutions every year.
Yes, sir, chief.
That's $40,000.
Yeah, and the police department
I think
are
you
the
might wanna-
eyes out there, and they see it.
Sounds like you might want to pause.
You've been doing your dad, you get some home.
Yes.
I yield, whatever
So
you want.
so those are the things, Rod, that come up when you, and I'm not saying, I think that's you gotta look at all things, but that's exactly what would be heard immediately, as it just was.
Make a move that we.
What do I do
this, And then just have
about,
the departments
I
come
know
back.
Brad,
Come, just
Chief's bound to
give
feel
them
the
how much
same
time
way
they need,
about
But,
the crew he had, and it's been stated before a little bit, I don't wanna get it too, Brad, the chief does such a good job with the police department. Nobody wants to go anywhere unless they're going to a higher paying job. They're not leaving.
That'd be good.
So, I don't know, I mean, I hear what you're saying, I just don't know.
Still, these are better conversations than who we gonna lay off this
No, I
month.
agree, I totally agree.
And that's the direction we're headed.
Yeah, well, yeah, and to answer you, chief, I guess I'd look at you and say, well, you're gonna have to do with what you got, cause everybody else is doing the same thing. Or what you'd like to have. Until the time is better. That's my answer tonight.
$5,500 will give us, you know, a year, a year or whatever, even 9 months, I'd take that.
And I did cut when I came over, I took an officer away. I downsized to save money. But as soon as I downsized, insurance has gone up and things have gone up and it's kind of balanced that out, so it really didn't help a tremendous amount.
And that's what we're looking at. Yes, I agree. Things have gone up. Inflation has caused, materials and all sorts of supplies to gone up, but our revenue hasn't, gone up to meet that. And that's where we're at this, crossroads and stuff, And so, Tom, I would say that, if the council approves it, we'll do this 15% contingency and let you, kind of work with the departments, and then when's the time that we can get back together after the departments had time to, try to do their tweaking?
After Snowmageddon.
Yeah, after Snowmageddon, yeah.
By the way, this is your budget. This is the real numbers from your budget, not the ones that I've changed. This is where your budgeted number was, 2,000,003. That's your contingency amount. For the 6.19%, because I adjusted this down to 15% from the original budget, that means we were off 324,000. That's what we have to come up with as a city in order to make this 786,000, because this is based on the original budgets with no changes to the budget, which I remember I saved 210,000, but adding back yours, it's probably about 205,000. So when we look up here, you were $147,000 needing to come up with in order to make your portion of that 6.19% now, instead of the 11.19. So you asked for go back to the original budget. That is your original budget. And that's how much money your contribution would need to be off that original budget.
We'll get you something by tomorrow.
Now, if you could, can you come up with 324?
Before we leave here, though, I want y'all to know that, because I didn't brief y'all on my first briefing, but I changed the certificate and changed it from $25 per certificate to $35. And I meant to tell y'all that the first night, but I didn't. It's still in there. He didn't change it, but I wanted y'all to know that I did raise the certificate pay from $25 a month to $35.
And in the overall picture, that's kind of small, isn't it?
Small, I just wanted you to know it before.
But also in the overall picture, it shows appreciation.
It would encourage them to go get their
Right.
education, get their English and their math, and it'll help
And
them
I-
make, if they wanna make a little bit more money, they can go out and take the initiative to go get that stuff done, they'll help them with their education. Yes, sir. I wanted y'all to know that, it did change, and I didn't, transparency, I wanted y'all to know I changed it. If y'all are okay.
Yeah, appreciate it. So
Okay.
when would be a date that we can meet again?
Didn't we have something, where did Charlie go? Did we not have something on the horizon before?
You had a,
Clarification on hiring, are we freezing, or,
Okay, hold on. What?
cause I need to know, I mean, seriously, the volunteers aren't a big cost up front. Cause we don't buy gear, anything for them for about a year, they go through probationary period. We're down to 27, soon to be down to 27, about 26. And out of that, 12 of them have full-time jobs that are 24-hour jobs, so that takes 1/3 of my force away each day and drops us down below 20. And if any of those guys that have jobs that
let them leave, like they have two or three during the day, that drops even further. So we're needing to add some personnel, so we get some bodies on the trucks. And it's not like we're adding $30,000 job. I mean, we're adding something that's gonna add maybe a couple $1,000s up front for the whole group, because we've already got the gear and the helmets and stuff for them to put on during the probationary period. But, the other thing is right now I've got 5 that need to go through the academy, they're requiring 6 before we can hold our academy. So I need to get one more person for sure hired on the department so we can have one. They would prefer us to have 10. So the academy's holding me up on about 5 guys who've been on 2 or 3 departments, and our bylaws say that they don't get their training, they get kicked off the department. So then I'll have 5 more guys that we could lose because we're not keeping everything rolling like we do every year. It's not a huge cost for our volunteers. I would just ask you not to put that part as a 3 because we're low on our numbers right now.
Okay, we can make that, code enforcement position available for that fire.
We can make the fire marshal, the building inspector.
I think it may be important for the council to know, Sturt, what the numbers you're talking. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense, but what does that cost? Can you say tonight, or can you need
Cost
for a volunteer fireman to start, how long it takes before you start paying him? I know you said you've got equipment already, but
And then we're paying insurance too. Don't forget that.
yeah, put all that
insurance that kick in for a while.
together.
Yeah, it does.
But they need to know a time frame. I would think. I mean, if it doesn't cost us,
It cost me about $6,000 to completely outfit a firefighter by the end of the year. The guys that came on last year, that money's already, that's our Act 33 funding. That doesn't even affect, council, that's not money you're talking about here. So all the turnouts and boots and helmets actually comes out of that Act 33.
So how do you hit the,
That's not even money we can touch.
so how much is a new firefighter hitting the general fund?
Just whatever response and training costs.
So,
And right now, they don't get paid per hour. They get paid per call.
they're getting $25 a
So it's
call.
pretty minuscule. I'd have to go look and see what the actual number would be on the last year. It's nothing like a regular.
how long is that probation?
1 year.
Like Danielle says, that, if they don't take insurance, they get,
If they take insurance, we're paying the 400 and, what is it, Tom, $470-ish a month per firefighter. If they don't take the insurance, then we're paying $200 a month.
200.
And
So-
that's it when they come off of probation,
No, they get it,
immediate?
they get it 60 days following the first month.
So when,
So that would be our biggest cost.
So that'd be the biggest cost. So assume like they all took it, so if you hired 5,
So if we ever fire 5, whatever that
it,
number would be.
it'd be like 2,500 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
So how many are you looking to hire?
Last year, we took everybody we could get that passed the test. We ended up taking about, let's say we took 1, 2, 3, we took 4, and I've already lost one of those. He left town 2 weeks ago. He tried to get a job here at the city, but it didn't work out for him at one of the water department. And so he had to move to Jonesboro. And so I'm down one of the guys from last year, so, it's probably, if you put training on top, depends how much training you get to actually do it. That's the key. The key is how much actual training you get to do, training classes.
Well, you need at least one to send them to the academy, right?
Well, I need one more for us to have the academy in-house. I have to have a minimum of 6, and right now we're at 5. And so I would say if we could put on 3 more guys, that would help us a lot.
But
We're gonna be lucky to even get 10 people to apply. That's what we had last year. And then you have to pass all the requirements and everything.
But if you had 5 good candidates, then you'd try to hire them all, would you?
I probably would.
And so, assuming,
We need it that bad right now because the people we've been hiring all have full-time jobs somewhere where they can't leave during the day because we haven't been getting anybody that has their own businesses, or it's different. People
people can't go to work at Walmart here, and then Walmart let them leave to go fight a fire.
I'm just saying five, if we say $600 a month per, volunteer, that'd be like $3,000 a month, but that may not hit till March or April when we,
I would tell you, we already have it in, I mean, the funds that we have in the budget, I'd already planned on doing that, so. I mean, out of the funds we have there, it's not something that was gonna be in addition to. I was
Can
just
those
asking
funds
whether
you're-
y'all want me to hire or not.
Can those funds you're talking about be used to pay all this thing we're talking about? Insurance and wherever you're getting this money,
I
Act
mean, that's,
33?
that would have been paid for out of the same funds that we already have budgeted.
That's
now.
what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's nothing that would have been in addition to.
it wouldn't be
Act
from Act,
833
it wouldn't,
doesn't pay
would,
for
Yeah,
the,
Act 833 doesn't pay that.
no.
pays for the equipment.
Yeah, but it doesn't pay for that other part. And that's the part that, I haven't seen the adjustments that Tom's made, but,
Yeah, you pretty much did. We did it when you were in my office.
oh, okay, I saw
The-
all that.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, okay.
that's,
Well, I'm just saying,
Well, all
the
this,
money's there for the, for the additional people, if we can get them in, but we just need bodies. We gotta get some guys in there to start training.
I get it.
I lose a couple more, we're really in trouble.
And then, and I know this is a whole nother conversation, but if you get 5 or 6 guys and they're in the same boat that everybody else is in, they got a job at Walmart or whatever, you're really, I mean, I know you're doing better because you have a percentage of them,
Percentage chance of
but
showing up.
not a guarantee that any of them are gonna show up or can during work,
That's the roll of the dice with volunteers.
during work hours. I get it.
I'm just saying,
Well,
the money's already there for
If the
it.
council,
I'm just asking if y'all, let us keep going, because,
I would say if the money's there, that I would consider keep going.
I don't,
yeah, it's not, there's not gonna be anything additional. We're not asking for any additional money.
well, if the council's not imposing and maybe you are, well, you probably need to say that tonight, if you are imposing or want to impose a hiring freeze, his question is irrelevant, because if you're not doing it for everybody, then you're not doing it for you, but if that's the goal or
I'm thinking,
thought.
I'm not really saying a hiring freeze, I'm saying maybe a hiring postponement or something like that, you know, if we could kind of push it again to the later half of the year or even,
That's a freeze. I mean, I'm not trying to be silly, I'm
He
just,
needs those people, God forbid something happen, he needs those people, and it's the cheapest route. He doesn't have a full-time fire department, and the volunteer operation that he does is a lot cheaper than having a full-time.
absolutely.
If he needs the other person to make the class, so he doesn't have to send them to Camden, it's gonna be cheaper that way. If he needs the people,
So they don't,
we've got to, we wouldn't be
They don't
sending
have-
them, they'd just be not able to get the training. so we have-
they don't have to go at all if you can have enough folks here.
Safety position.
Well, save money, no, it's save money.
They can hold the academy.
That's what I
We can
mean.
actually hold the academy classes here.
Yeah.
It might be a couple more, overnight stay.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't need to do all this.
If they hold it here, you got more people that work here that are more apt to go.
Absolutely, yeah.
so I guess rather than looking at it in terms of a freeze, if we, I mean, if we've got a budgeted position that we lose a person during the year, then they need to come back to us and say, can we replace this position?
Replacement, not a,
Yeah,
okay.
Not a hiring freeze, just a replacement of,
Is that, council, you,
if we bring somebody in, if a position frees up and they want to replace it, they need to come to the council and have that approved,
as a replacement.
so we can consider where we are in the budget at that time.
I'm fine with that.
And I think,
And we can't
the-
vote, we're not voting.
Right.
no, I mean, yeah, but
I like
So,
that.
I'd like at least,
Yeah.
us to be able to get them in, and I can come in and say, hey, guys, we got four guys that we really wanna hire, and let y'all like pick it.
we're
so
not,
he's the first person to request.
we're not talking about your volunteers.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I think
you're good.
you're good to go hire your volunteers.
Yes.
All right, well, the process is gonna start here soon, we advertise.
So, that brings back to when would be a time that we can meet?
I asked y'all, did we have a date kind of set before about this or not?
No.
No?
Bad weather for me, but next week, I mean,
Okay.
no, we didn't have the
Okay.
date.
And yeah,
We
No.
said we would send it.
no, you may not leave town.
I will be leaving town probably Monday or Tuesday.
You wanna go ahead and make it a special call meeting so we can vote if necessary?
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Next Tuesday or Wednesday?
You
No,
back
I-
when?
Monday if possible,
Well,
because I have,
Mondays, I don't think anybody's gonna go anywhere.
well, I seriously doubt anybody's gonna,
Monday's gonna happen.
Monday is a Water Sewer Commission meeting as well.
That's why I put 6. I mean,
okay.
it's not-
Well, if they require me to be in Stillwater, I'll be in Stillwater on Tuesday. So, that's what I'm saying. I've already informed them. They know the
What's
weather
the-
conditions.
What's the deadline? We cannot go. up
I'd
there.
say Tuesday, now, I'm for Tuesday, you know, can we do Tuesday, you know, yeah, we're gonna,
You have
hopefully,
until
Steve, the
Friday.
snow will keep you here, but.
Till Friday.
Friday. Tuesday's a ball game night, of course. I don't know if it's home or not.
We'll include for him.
Yes, I believe.
Questions in by tomorrow, could we have a meeting tomorrow, Thursday?
Oh, no. Yeah, no.
I'm fine with Tuesday.
Well,
get
well,
your,
Rod is how's Tuesday with you?
Pardon?
That's good.
Like Friday night, good?
I
So-
like the life.
It's Steve and Tim that'd be questionable, but if we could get Roger, that would be a 4.
Tuesday, I believe the game is in town.
But regardless, I mean, he'd be gone if it's out of town or in town, wouldn't he?
No, he didn't call out.
Oh, he didn't, okay.
Football he did, but
Oh,
not
okay.
basketball. I don't think. Pretty sure he doesn't.
But it's in
He
town.
didn't call the games out of town, does he? Basketball? Basketball? Does he?
Yeah, I kinda think he does too.
I could be wrong. First time in the last.
But if we
2
get
minutes.
4 councilmen here, you know, I think we'll still be in good shape, and maybe we get
Yeah,
5. Steve.
Roger typically only has issues with Wednesday. Yeah. I'd be fine with Tuesday if we could do Tuesday. Let's do Tuesday. What time?
I like 5, but.
I'd say 6, I'm fine with 6.
Six is easier.
6 on Tuesday instead?
Yep,
Okay, special meeting.
spaghetti. Tom, when you, so are you asking all departments to have their edits in by when?
Friday,
he needs it by Friday.
by Friday, time we leave. Cause I'll put it together during the Snowmageddon. I will, nothing else to do. And then I'll have that presentation ready for Tuesday evening. But
And I wanna make sure that I understood you right. I know we dismissed water sewer. You don't need anything.
Water Sewer's budget actually got better because they're a big recipient of the insurance based on their facilities, and their insurance rates dropped. And by the way, it's not 7.5%, I budgeted 8%. So that could go down, I could make it 5 and see what the impact would be. You know, there's some things we could do to tweak it, like I said, but.
Ask him to say if he could send us the.
But
All right, we good?
I wanted to point out, police, the holiday pay, on that holiday that came up the day after Christmas, that one time, never happened again for 12 more years or whatever. The impact was budgeted in. When you first saw their budget, this was not in there because they had their budget review study session. No, it was after that, it was in there. I said it was about 4,200, it's $4,115.68 impact, because it's an additional holiday pay in this column right here. Instead of 13 holidays, they got a 14th holiday. So that is in there, I didn't want to
I
surprise
guess it
you.
was added in fire for one
It was
employee.
added once in fire, yes.
Yeah.
Tom, I'd ask when you get the budget put together on Friday, could you email it to us? So that we can review it ahead of time.
If I get a list of your emails, I could send, yeah, I know you do. Could I get a list of those? Yes, that would be great. I will when I finish it.
Yeah, when you finish it.
That will be over the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, great. As long as you realize it ain't gonna be Friday when you get it.
Could I get a copy too, please?
No. You'll have to wait.
You may not have power over the weekend.
Hmm?
You may not have power.
We may not have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi.
It's just gonna be a lovely snow, it's not gonna be
Just a-
impactful.
Just a dusting.
There you go.
There'll be somebody does something stupid at 2 a.m. and the whole fire department and police department's out there.
All right, anything
always do.
further, council,
So,
Tom?
sum up, what am I doing? We're doing 15%.
15.
1 year,
Yes.
potential increase. We'll go over that during the approval, but 15%, I've already dropped that. And then, modify the budgets based on director input,
And that was due by Friday.
due by Friday.
Do we have specific goals on what we're cutting, or are we just trying to take a chainsaw to everything?
He has specific dollar amounts.
You gonna be here tomorrow? Tomorrow afternoon? All right, I'll meet with you and Hunter. I've already done planning because they both came in with their suggestions on their own and said, this is what we want, because they had new rates put in. We've modified their budget considerably based on these new fees that they have. So they generated additional revenues and expenses. And I'll get with you as well in person and make your changes. You send me yours if you could on email, and I'll input those into, from the original budget. You can give me anything you want to give me in your operations side, the street O&M. Who else is in
We need to
here?
get to 6%.
Pardon?
Whatever number was that Tom showed.
Now, that's department-wide, right?
Let me go to contingencies, because that's where it was. 15% is 6.19%, and your number is $147,000. Okay.
My question is if, and I think this is where Casey's going, so it states right there, that Delicious Use Planning says we need to figure out to cut $17,418. If we can do that, and I'm gonna use Brad as an example and pick on him again, if he's not able to hit that 147, then we go back to having to cut more in my department because we've not met the overarching goal. So do we aim for what this number is, or
Okay.
how are we supposed to plan for that?
Okay. This is from your original budget. This is you have already submitted enough to potentially wipe that out
Okay,
in your revised budget.
okay.
So I don't think you're gonna have to cut anything. I mean, right now, you have a surplus of 14,000. So you're real close. I don't think there's much you're
So
gonna
you can
have
build
to do.
snowmen this weekend and not have to worry about it.
Unless you're feeling benevolent, and then you can
Yeah,
Kick some back to
exactly.
police.
Yeah. Brad, can
more
you
you
make it
cut,
250?
I was needing a new transmission.
Yeah, the more you cut, the less he has to cut. I'll trade you two for a tranny. Trade you two culverts for a tranny.
You do have an original police vehicle in your possession, so we could do some swap back. Everybody got their homework? No? Okay. Seriously? Do we? Okay.
We,
I wanna just say, we all know Tom works hard, blah, blah, blah. No, he does, and we tell him that all the time, but I wanna tell the department heads, I know it's hard sitting in your shoes, I used to sit in your shoes. We weren't asked to do quite what you're being asked to do when I was a department head, but there were years that were lean, and you just do what you have to do to make the city work, and nobody in this room is selfish. Everybody's doing their job because of everybody else. Police department doesn't work well if the street department doesn't work well, and vice versa, parks, everybody. So, I wanna thank you personally for what you're doing, and if you get to build a snowman this weekend, good for you. But if you're not, you're trying to figure this out, you know, and if I can help you, you know I'm not a numbers person, never have been, that's why he's there and they're sitting here. But I just wanna tell you that, I appreciate what you're doing, it's tough.
This is better than having a fire.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, keep up the good work and we'll work it out together. And kumbaya.
Tom, I'm sorry you're in the spot you're in, because you're in a bad spot.
Tom don't,
And-
like you said, he don't make the weather, he just reports it.
His son does the
They
weather.
eat this stuff for breakfast.
All right.
I could be wrong.
Motion to adjourn officially. Thank you.